Okay, so finally we're back. So Raziel finds a hidden entrance behind the pillars that opens only to the Reaver and has a picture that looks a little bit like him. And he enters this cave and descends down into this chamber below the pillars.
As I entered the chamber, I sensed that it had been sealed for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. And while this room was clearly built when the pillars were erected, I knew that no human hand could have shaped this place, and that perhaps it had never been seen by human eyes. The surrounding murals depicted a winged race, their features so like my own, but beautiful, where mine were grotesque, and angelic, while mine were demonic. I tried to decipher these images. A great war, but with combatants like none I had ever seen. The pillars, raised by this winged race, who thus defeated their adversaries. The winged beings again, writhing in agony, apparently afflicted with the same bloodthirst I had so recently suffered. And throughout the chamber, inscribed everywhere, images of the Reaver itself. Was this what Kain had urged me to discover? I wondered.
Lies, Raziel. Do not be deceived.
Ah, my ancient benefactor. And I dared to hope we had parted ways forever. Your silence was refreshing while it lasted. No doubt you have a conveniently inexpressible reason for your presence here?
Do not be insolent, Raziel. I am eternally present here and everywhere, now and always. I am the still center of the turning wheel, the hub of this world's destiny.
But perhaps not so omnipotent as you'd have me believe. Your hold on me appears to be tenuous. I no longer seem to need you. Yet I'm guessing you still need me.
This impudence is unworthy of you, Raziel. Do not forget that you have a task to fulfill here. You are indebted to me.
Indebted? You would have me show gratitude for a gift I didn't ask to be bestowed? Do you forget that you forced me to inhabit this vile carcass?
I restored you to yourself, Raziel. It was Kain who destroyed you. The very enemy you've just let slip through your grasp. Do not fail me, my servant.
I serve no one. Not you, not Kain, and not your lackey Mobius.
Mobius is my good servant. I have many.
And if I tell Mobius that he's worshipping a giant squid, do you think his faith will falter?
You have grown willful, Raziel. But beware. To embrace a serpent is to invite poison into your heart. Kain is a sinuous beast. He will seduce and deceive you. You pride yourself on your free will, yet you let that degenerate deter your resolve.
I harbor no illusions about his integrity, nor anyone else's. In fact, I am beset by manipulation on all sides. I merely seek the truth.
These are the fathomless truths, Raziel. The agony of birth and death and rebirth. This is the wheel of fate, the purifying cycle which sustains all life. Vampires are an abomination, a plague which leeches this land of its spiritual strength. They obstruct the flow of life and death. Their souls stagnate in their wretched corpses. But the wheel must turn. Death is inexorable and cannot be denied. Your destiny is irresistible, Raziel. You are my soul reaver, the scourge of the vampires, reaper of their apostate souls. Remain steadfast, end the vampire's parasitic curse, and restore Nosgoth. Kain's blood belongs on your hands.
Kain indeed deserves to die. for condemning me to this repugnant form, but if and when I kill him, it will be for me alone to decide.
Kain destroyed you without a flicker of remorse. He tore the soul from your noble corpse, and after you had served him faithfully for 1,000 years, he discarded you in the abyss on a jealous whim. Remember your rage, Raziel. Let it guide your hand.
Alright, so we have some stuff to talk about. So Raziel finds the Elder God again, and he finds him in a chamber that's hidden underneath the pillars. And although Raziel can't hear his voice everywhere in the world anymore, the Elder God remembers Raziel from the future, right? Because Raziel is killed like hundreds of years in the future, and this Elder God from the past would recognize him and remembers everything.
You would be wise to heed me, Raziel.
So the Elder God apparently has the ability to... has like one mind across time, and no matter how much time passes, or if you go back in time, its mind stays the same, which is crazy powerful. That's one thing to note. The second thing to note here is that Raziel is kind of a bit more unfriendly with the Elder God this time around. Like in the first game, he's never antagonistic to it, but in this game, he's kind of got this like, oh, it's you, like kind of attitude about it. And I think the reason is that Raziel is sort of getting manipulated by everybody he meets, and I think he becomes suspicious that the Elder God might be another just entity that's trying to manipulate Raziel to its own ends. And I think he basically says that in this cutscene, you know. So he's a bit more leery. The Elder God is once again pushing Raziel to kill Kain. Him and the Elder God and Mobius, who works for the Elder God, are very, very adamant about Raziel has to kill Kain. The Elder God says it's because Kain is immortal, and his vampires' souls basically jam up the wheel of fate. But there might be some other reason the Elder God wants Kain dead. And Raziel is kind of determined to figure out what exactly that is. Also, at the beginning of the cutscene, we see that the pillars were built by an ancient winged race that also have a connection to the Soul Reaver. And they seem to have worshipped both these things as like these holy artifacts. That's basically it. And Raziel moves on and finds himself in the swamp with the Ignis Fatuus, the home of Vorador, the vampire.
I surfaced into a very different landscape. The daylight barely penetrated the dense canopy of this forest. Here I discovered an ancient ruin, unmistakably one of Mobius's time-streaming chambers, but long ago sealed and abandoned to the encroaching swamp. I didn't currently possess the means to break this seal, but I thought in time that I might. So, my lurking observer was exposed. The creature vanished when he realized he was discovered, but I caught a glimpse of him, and his features were distinctive enough. This was the vampire Vorador, the monstrous assassin depicted in the stronghold. Strange that a creature brazen enough to assault the circle single-handedly would avoid confronting me. Very well. If Vorador would not come to me, I would go to him. But first, I needed to find some means of reaching that terrace. There appeared to be a passage here, leading northward into the mountains. The opening, however, was obstructed and too high for me to reach. Perhaps later I would find the means to bypass these obstacles. My lurking friend was nowhere to be seen, but I found these ruins even more intriguing. I recognized these arcane symbols from the chamber beneath the pillars, and realized that this shrine, too, was sealed to all but the bearer of the Reaver. Throughout this ancient shrine, murals depicted the winged race and the apocalyptic war against their mysterious and equally inhuman adversaries. These winged beings, it seemed, were not only the architects of the pillars, but of this enigmatic place as well. And just as in the pillars' chamber, this shrine was adorned throughout with imagery of the Reaver, depicted with the reverence of a holy icon.
So now basically Raziel has to do a bunch of really lame, not interesting at all, puzzles involving light and darkness and creating eclipses and stuff like that. And for the sake of the sanity of anybody who watches this video, I cut out those puzzles. But not for the sake of my own sanity, who had to play this. This game doesn't play good. Soul Reaver 2 is not a good video game. The story is excellent, but oh dear God, it is not fun to play at all. It is absolutely a form of torture, and yeah, I don't recommend it. Which is why I'm making this video. So I could spare my friend from having to play this game. I don't remember it being as bad as it was replaying it, but it was really bad. It was really, really bad. I might make a video about how bad the game was. But anyway, here's the Dark Reaver.
As I neared the altar, I suddenly felt the Reaver quickening of its own volition. Just as in William's chapel, the balance of power tangibly shifted. Voracious and willful, the Soul Reaver was now in control, and I, merely its helpless puppet. The Reaver plunged itself into that mysterious altar, and devouring the energy that emanated from within, drained this place of its power. Thus sated, the Reaver released me, and I realized as I recovered control that these ancient shrines were forges, each purpose-built to enhance the Reaver with elemental power.
You're a ragged excuse for a savior.
Vorador.
I see my reputation precedes me.
It does.
All good, I hope? I've been watching you since you emerged from that accursed stronghold. Strange that your arrival coincides with the corruption of the pillars. But I'm wondering, are you the catalyst of these events? Or the answer to them?
I don't know what you mean.
I will speak plainly, then. I distrust your origins, stranger. Seeing you crawl from the putrid depths of Mobius's keep makes me question your purpose here. And what should I make of your appearance? Not human, clearly, and more demon than vampire. And the pillars. It is no mere coincidence that your arrival in that clearing heralded the pillars' decay. And so I ask you plainly, Are you the instrument of the Pillars' destruction, or their salvation?
Neither.
Very well. Let us look at the other side of the coin. I have followed your journey and watched as you blithely unlocked secrets that have been sealed and forbidden for thousands of years. The path you have been treading is open to only one being. You don't know what you are, do you?
I have been many things. If you find me ignorant, enlighten me.
What's the point? This world is beyond redemption. Let the human cattle have it.
I would expect better than meek capitulation from you.
Centuries of persecution have taught me well. 500 years ago, our race was nearly exterminated by the fanatical crusades of the Seraphan. And now the same sick drama unfolds again. In merely a decade, Mobius's cutthroat citizen army has nearly accomplished what the Seraphan could not. Vampires meddling in the affairs of men. Look where it's brought us.
What am I to make of these secrets I've uncovered, then? The depictions of the winged race, the Pillars, and the Reaver.
Fairy tales, boy. The delusions of an ancient culture clinging to hope long after the world had discarded them. Their bloodline trickled away, until only one of the ancients remained, sustained solely by obligation and his unfaltering faith in the old prophecies. But you see, even if you are who you appear to be, it no longer matters. You're simply too late. Janos Audron, the Reaver Guardian, the last of the ancients, and my maker, was murdered by the Seraphan nearly 5 centuries ago. He alone would have the answers you seek, but his secrets died with him. I don't know how you've come even this far without his guidance, or without the Reaver, stolen these 500 years ago by the Seraphan. I'm afraid, my friend, that you and all of us are out of luck.
I had no less reason to trust Vorador than anyone else I had met. In fact, the ancient vampire was the most forthright being I had encountered thus far. If Janos Audron was the key to all this, then I would find him, and Mobius's time-streaming device would provide me passage. But first, I had to find a way back into the stronghold, and I suspected I would find the means within the lake's mysterious shrine.
So now as Raziel hops through the swamp awkwardly, trying to get back to the vampire slayer stronghold, let's talk about Vorador. So Vorador basically approaches Raziel and questions like his purpose here. He's been watching him since he came out of the vampire hunter stronghold, the remains of the Seraphan keep, and he's seen him like open up all these secrets and stuff that only one being is supposed to be able to interact with, although Raziel doesn't have the Soul Reaver, like the physical blade, which this being is supposed to have, and this being is the savior, or is supposed to be a savior of the vampires, right? Like vampire Jesus. But he doesn't look like Vorador imagined, so Vorador just straight up questions Raziel, like, who are you? Like, what are you doing here? And Raziel's like, I don't really know what I'm like just looking for answers. I don't really know what I'm supposed to be. What do you think I'm supposed to be? And Vorador's just like tired. He's like, all right, well, you know, the person who would really know is Janos Audron, and he's been dead for a long time. So, like, you know, you're too late. If you are who you're supposed to be, like, you're too late. The one person who could help you is dead. So Raziel gets his next destination from Vorador. He gets Janos' name. He now knows that this ancient vampire who had his heart ripped out, famously in this world, would know who he is. And Vorador also says that Janos was his maker. So Janos is the vampire that created Vorador. He also created the Reaver, and he knew about all these prophecies. So now Raziel is going to go back to the stronghold, find the time machine, and see if he can go back in time and talk to this Janos Aldrin person.
Ah, my wayward child returns.
Having unearthed more than you'd like, I suspect. What am I to make of these ruins that litter the land, and these images here in this chamber?
Merely the deceits of a failed civilization. You are being misled, Raziel. This ancient race hoped to manipulate the future with these scrawled misdirections. You must tread carefully. There are dark forces at work in this world, bent on subverting your true destiny.
I have no doubt of that. The question is, am I in their presence right now?
Your arrogance will spell your demise, Raziel. Deny my will, and the arc of your destiny will reach a sudden conclusion.
Your threats are unmoving. Even now, I'm beyond your reach.
My reach is longer than you realize. This is a very dangerous game you're playing, Raziel.
So after telling the Elder God to go fuck himself, Raziel finds this door next to the keep, and with the Dark Reaver, he is able to unlock it.
These murals left no room for doubt. These winged creatures were indeed the architects of the pillars. And while the images were difficult to decipher, the pillars appeared to banish or diminish their enemies somehow.
So apparently the ancient vampires built the pillars, and they were a way to weaken or banish their ancient enemies. So this area that Raziel is walking into is the Light Forge for the Reaver. He's got the Darkness Reaver. Now he's going to solve a bunch of video game puzzles and get the Light Reaver, which powers these ancient crystals. Raziel will use this power to gain access to the stronghold and get into the time machine so he can go and see Janos Aldrin.
I plunged the Reaver into the forge and imbued the blade with the elemental power of light. Thus armed, I now had the means to re-enter the stronghold and finally use Mobius's time-streaming device to accomplish my own ends.
So armed with the Light Reaver, Raziel can open the door to the Cyberpunk stronghold. Why the door has something only the Soul Reaver can open is because this is a video game. Anyway, Raziel gets back into the stronghold and starts heading to the time machine chamber.
Show yourself, Kain.
Here, Raziel. Everything is decided here. You cannot comprehend the magnitude, the rapture and the tragedy of this moment. And yet you must, if Nosgoth is to be dragged from the wreckage of its damnation.
I understand only this, Kain. That you and Mobius have impelled me to this moment simply means I can trust neither of you. I don't know who's pulling the strings, but it no longer matters, because I'm cutting them. I set my own course from here.
If it were only that simple.
Your fatalism is tiresome, Kain.
And profoundly ingrained, Raziel. You must understand, our presence here doesn't alter history. You and I meet here because we are compelled to. We have always met here. History is irredeemable. Drop a stone into a rushing river. The current simply courses around it and flows on as if the obstruction were never there. You and I are pebbles, Raziel, and have even less hope of disrupting the time stream. The continuum of history is simply too strong, too resilient. Except, then how do we explain William here? The beloved boy king turned tyrant. In my youth, I witnessed William's rise to power and his transformation into the nemesis who laid waste to Nosgoth.
Keep your distance, Kain.
Years later, I stumble upon a chance to journey back in history, unaware that the entire affair has been carefully orchestrated by Mobius. In my wisdom, I seize this opportunity to murder the young king before he can ravage Nosgoth, and thereby provide the catalyst Mobius needs to ignite a genocidal war against our race.
I warn you, no further.
This one reckless act unravels the skein of history. The nemesis never becomes the nemesis. William dies a martyred saint. I, the vampire assassin, become the author of my own species' extinction, and Mobius profits from it all. I destroyed a tyrant only to create one far worse. But how can it be so? How, if history is immutable? The answer is here in this room, Raziel. Mobius propelled William and me together, but ensured first that we were both armed with the Soul Reaver. The Reaver is the key. Two incarnations of the blade meet in time and space. A paradox is created, a temporal distortion powerful enough to derail history.
Is this your sorcery?
Not mine, Raziel. Yours. You have nothing to fear from me, Raziel. You hold all the cards.
Then perhaps I should should test your sincerity. If what you say is true, you should be terrified. I could kill you here and now.
And so you do, Raziel.
What's happening?
We're hurtling towards our destinies, Raziel. What you feel is the pull of history rushing to meet us. This is where history and destiny collide. If you truly believe in free will, Raziel, now is the time to prove it. Kill me now, and we both become pawns of history, dragged down the path of an artificial destiny. I was ordained to assume the role of Balance Guardian in Nosgoth, while you were destined to be its savior. But the map of my fate was redrawn by Mobius, and so in turn was yours.
This is madness!
Fight it, Raziel. This moment does not have to be an ending. It can become a prelude.
I can't.
You can, Raziel. Look inside and see that it is so. You have the power to reshape our inevitable futures. Poor William.
What is this?
History, a pause, a paradox, Raziel. Even now, the time stream strains to divert itself, finding its old course blocked by your refusal to destroy me. The future is reshuffling itself to accommodate your monumental decision. This is where we restore ourselves, Raziel, and reclaim our intended destinies. It may yet be possible for me to assume my role as Balance Guardian and return the pillars to their rightful inheritors.
To the vampires. And this is the destiny you have urged me to discover. I don't know what game you and Mobius are playing, Kain, but I refuse to be your pawn. Unlike you, I still revere whatever shred of humanity I've managed to preserve. You will not use me as the instrument of your messianic delusions.
Very well, Raziel. I'll not ask you to trust me. Your truths are for you to discover alone.
Humble words for one who presumes to teach me a lesson at every turn.
Then continue your journey and learn your own lessons, Raziel. Remember, Mobius led you here, but you walk away unfettered. A champion of free will and conqueror of false histories. There is much more for you to unearth, if you have the heart for the truth and the will to see it.
All right, so that was a cutscene. We got a lot to talk about there. So let's watch these events again, and I'll kind of narrate what's going on. So as Raziel is heading back to the time machine, he notices that this man has had his blood drained and realizes immediately that Kain is in the vicinity. So Kain is standing at the shrine of William the Just, with the Soul Reaver laying on top of it, now repaired by Raziel. Raziel tells Kain that he's not going to be manipulated anymore. He's going to find out his own destiny. He's not going to do what Kain says. He's not going to do what Mobius says. He's just going to follow his dreams. And Kain says, listen, it doesn't work like that. Like, you cannot change history. History just is written already, and there's nothing you can do to make it different. Like, you can't just decide your own fate. Except for one thing. Like, how do you explain William here in the coffin? This guy, in my time, became the Nemesis. A tyrant that was, destroyed everything and laid waste to everything. But I went back in time and fought him, killed him, and changed history. How is that possible? The Soul Reaver. Before Mobius sent Kain back in time, he made sure Kain had the Soul Reaver and made sure William also had the Soul Reaver. when the two Reavers meet in time, there's like this distortion, and that's this distortion that you can see, like the background is going in and out. This is what Raziel felt the first time he ran into the Reaver blade when he encountered it here. This is like, these are the points, this paradox where two like versions of the Soul Reaver meet in the same point in time. This is where you can change time in this brief moment. And Raziel says, well, if that's true, then you should be terrified. Like, I could destroy you right now, right? And Kain is like, yeah, this is when you kill me. So time, like, forces Raziel's hand, like he is pulled towards Kain. Like the Reavers are pulling him towards his destiny to destroy Kain, because this is the moment where he kills him. And Kain is like, listen, you know, if you really want to change your destiny, you have to fight it. You have to fight like the pull of this destiny that was written before we got a chance to make our decisions, right? And Raziel uses all his strength, and he just narrowly avoids killing Kain at this moment. And he stabs to the corpse of William again with the Soul Reaver. So then history like starts reshuffling. The time stream starts reshuffling to like make these changes that they brought on. So like right now, Kain is not supposed to be alive, but he is, and history is rewriting itself to like make room for this change. So now Kain says that he's free, since he's not dead, to find his true destiny, where he restores the pillars to their rightful owners, which are the vampires. Raziel's like, Raziel doesn't see the vampires as like these good guys, because he still feels like connected to his human self, the Sarafan. And Kain's like, all right, fine, you know, you go do your thing, you know, you make your own destiny and I'll make mine. So now Raziel heads to the time machine chamber and opens up the time machine with the Light Reaver in order to go and speak with Algren and find out who he's really supposed to be.
Ah, yes. I like that look on your face, Mobius. You really don't know what to do now, do you, old man? Here you are, caught without your damned staff, and I suspect things aren't progressing quite as you'd hoped. You're not used to the fly turning to confront you in your web, are you?
Kain's devious influence has poisoned your mind, Raziel. Now you see betrayal everywhere, even in your closest allies.
We were never allies, Mobius. Conspirators, perhaps. Briefly.
Why did you not kill Kain when you had the chance? He was at your mercy.
Precisely. I had a choice, and I chose mercy. And now I know your sordid little secret. The significance of that displacement I felt when the two Reavers came together. Strangely enough, I was enlightened by the devious Kain, not by you. In fact, I've learned much more than you counted on. I understand now how you've tried to manipulate all of history for your own personal gain. But now all your little schemes are whirling in ruin around you, aren't they? All because I chose to exert my will for once, rather than obey the demands of sorcerers and spirits and demons, all singing the same tiresome refrain, "Kill Kain." I'm setting my own path from here, Mobius. I intend to discover the truth behind all of this.
But you condemn us all with this impetuous act.
Hardly impetuous. It took all the will I could muster. Has my refusal to kill Kain reshuffled your carefully stacked deck of cards?
You really think that you're exercising your free will, Raziel? You're simply Kain's servant.
I do not serve Kain. I merely did not kill him.
Raziel, do not forget your purpose here. You are destined to be the savior of Nosgoth.
Oh, I'm sick of hearing that particular phrase. As for saving Nosgoth, so far I see precious little reason to bother. And I'll choose my own purpose from here on out, Time Streamer. Right now, I choose to manipulate you for a change. Go. In there.
What are you doing?
Come now, Mobius. You're a cunning serpent. You'll piece it together, I imagine. This era is of no further use to me. You will operate this device to provide me passage. I want to see the world in a simpler time, before the Sarafan began their crusade.
And what about Kain? You're leaving your core behind.
You kill him if it's so damned important.
You need only touch the 2 poles of the switch, and the device will transport you. But I urge you to reconsider.
You've lost your powers of persuasion, old man. Rot here and forget me.
So Mobius is a little upset that Kain is not dead, and Raziel basically just makes him set the time machine so he can go to the past and talk to Janos Aldrin, and he just kind of totally believes that Mobius did that. Super smart move to make there, in the believing your manipulator guy, that he did what you said you wanted him to do.
Even as I emerged from that infernal time-streaming chamber, I suspected treachery. The stronghold was vacant, derelict, abandoned.
So it turns out that Raziel is a dingus, and Mobius has sent him into the future. And now there's demons who really suck and are terrible to play against, and I have to fight lots of them now.
If I had any doubts about the era I now occupied, this grotesque tableau certainly eliminated them. For here was Mobius, long since murdered by Kain, lionized and beatified as the martyred leader of his bloodthirsty crusade. And if I required further evidence, I needed only to behold the gruesome trophy Mobius held aloft. A severed head of Vorador, the final triumphant kill of Mobius's cutthroat mob. His execution marked the annihilation of the vampires. Far from channeling me into Nosgoth's past, Mobius had propelled me over a century to its ghastly future. The intent behind this little detour was unmistakable. Having failed to make me his obedient assassin, Mobius intended to keep me ignorant of my true destiny, which clearly lay in Nosgoth's past. While his deception only reinforced my purpose, Mobius had effectively stranded me here. This left me no course but to explore the era I now occupied and see what changes the century had wrought following Kain's ill-fated decision. Perhaps time had cleared a path for me into the mountains, where I might unearth more clues behind the mystery of Janos Aldrin.
Raziel.
What pathetic charade is this now, Mobius?
No charade, Raziel. Only the entreaties of this martyred spirit.
Your pleas mean nothing to me after all your deceit. You have propelled me into Nosgoth's future, Mobius, and left me stranded here.
I am truly sorry, Raziel, but it was necessary. Consider it the last valiant act of a doomed man. You have strayed from your purpose, and now behold the result. Gaze upon the wasteland you and Kain authored together.
I fail to see how I'm responsible.
You spared Kain, and by doing so, you have released a multitude of horrors upon this world. I can accept that Kain has murdered me, Raziel. As the Time Guardian, I foresaw that incident long before it occurred, and I take some small comfort in the fact that Kain remains the sole survivor of his vile breed. But you have single-handedly made my sacrifice meaningless.
Your argument is disingenuous, Time Streamer. I cannot see how killing or sparing Kain's future self would alter these events. This wasteland was created by Kain's original refusal at the Pillars. And amidst all these twists and turns, that event has never changed. You are cunning, Mobius. I think you've gotten tangled in your own web.
As Kain clings to his precious seat of power, the pillars sink into a mire of decay, dragging all of Nosgoth down with them.
I don't think this has anything to do with the Pillars, or Kain's failure to sacrifice himself. I think you're simply afraid, because you don't know what he's up to. He's a wild card, isn't he? And you don't want his influence in your game. Which is why you wanted me to eliminate him. Well, now that he survived, you have no idea what's coming, do you? Maybe, for the first time in your entire life, you're terrified that he may have truly found a third option out of the dilemma you orchestrated for him.
Kain's lies have addled your mind. Leave this place and trouble my spirit no more.
If you even are a spirit. You've forgotten. I have a way to tell for sure. If you're willing to risk it. I don't think so. Either way, you lose.
Alright, so as I run through the wasteland, let's talk about that cutscene that just happened. So Raziel runs into Mobius's quote-unquote spirit, which is very questionable. And Mobius basically just tells Raziel, oh, look what you've done, you've ruined the future. And Raziel's like, what do you mean? Like, this wasteland is created by the young Kain. Like, how would killing his older self do this? Like, he kind of catches Mobius in his own bullshit. And Mobius is like, oh, well, you have to kill Kain. Like, it's so important. And Raziel's like, It seems to be more like you're afraid of what he'll do now that he's survived, like, his end. It's not really that he did this, like, the pillars will be destroyed no matter what. You're more worried about what his future self is going to do. And, you know, the ghost, quote unquote, of Mobius is like, "Whoa." And Raziel's like, I don't even believe that you're really a spirit. Like, I can find out real easy if I take my cloak off, because he'll if he's a ghost, he'll absorb his soul. If not, then he'll know it's full of shit, which it's most likely full of shit. It's most likely an illusion created by Mobius just to push Raziel to kill Kain, which is the thing he's been doing this whole time. And now I'm going to avoid these fucking demons and enter into the future site of the pillars.
These were the pillars so familiar to my blighted eyes. But now that I had begun to learn their true significance, I regarded the pillars' destruction with a new, enlightened sense of horror. And I questioned now whether Kain's simple refusal, his mere ambition, could truly have caused such devastation. I felt that some darker influence was at work here. As I approached, I discerned the spirit of Ariel, bound here now for more than a century.
Forever am I bound, hope abandoned, my spirit tethered to this place. What destroyed the circle could not touch me, For I was newly dead and beyond harm's reach. I alone was spared the descent into madness, and Kain alone was spared the pain of death. When Napraptor's poison seized Kain even in the safety of the womb, much more than just his destiny was lost. All of Nosgoth lost balance. Consider us now, both of us less than we once were. I, pure but insubstantial, and Kain, terribly real, but corrupted.
Your imprisonment here has deranged you, Spirit. You fixate on Kain because you believe he is the tether that binds you here. We both know he is not the author of your agony. The pillars were subverted by dark forces, invited by the Guardians themselves. The more I learn of your circle, the more I see a tangle of nested manipulations.
Kain handed them their victory. They sought to topple the pillars, and he was their willing instrument.
Or was he their unwilling pawn? Would it blunt your wrath to know that Kain's dilemma was calculated to bring the pillars down, regardless of the choice he made? And that the devastation would have been even greater had he chosen the path you would prescribe for him?
You are a subtle, deceitful creature. But your clever arguments do not absolve Kain. He must die for the pillars to be restored. There is no other way.
Then consider this more ominous possibility. What if Kain's death does not restore the pillars? Consider that it may simply be too late, that this world may be beyond redemption, and that you may be bound here eternally.
Why do you hound me, demon? You can see that I am captive here. Show me some mercy.
Like the mercy you showed your fellow Guardians when you set Kain on them? Or the mercy you showed Kain when you kept him ignorant of his destiny while you used him as the scourge of the Circle? Or perhaps like the mercy you showed your beloved Napraptor when you made him Kain's first kill?
You are cruel. Why do you torment me?
I'm merely looking for answers, Ariel. Very well. I'll leave you in peace. But know this about you and this purgatory from which you long to escape. You're merely at the threshold.
So, Raziel meets Ariel at the pillars, and she's just kind of lamenting her past and blaming Kain for her situation. And Raziel confronts her and says, you know, maybe it's not all about Kain. Like, maybe this would have happened no matter what. Maybe he's being manipulated or been manipulated this entire time. Like, all the Guardians seem to be this, like he says, like, the group of Guardians seems to be like this nest of, like, manipulators and betrayers. Like, it might not all be Kain's fault. And Ariel's like, I don't want to hear it, like, that kind of thing. And he prods her, he pokes her a little bit more, and, you know, he tells her, like, you might just be stuck here forever. She runs away into the spirit realm, and he follows her and, you know, talks to her some more. But he seems to just, like, she doesn't have any of the answers. Like, he's just, like, irritating her. So he leaves and just lets her go about her business, basically. I think he's just, like, trying to find out, like, what exactly is going on, and he thinks she might have some answers. But once he finds out that she really doesn't, he kind of leaves her alone.
Raziel, the failed assassin. You had Kain at your mercy, but lacked the courage to fulfill the act. And now you see the wasteland wrought by the tyrant's hand, by his selfish decision to preserve his own life, even when it meant sacrificing the whole world. This is the fate of Nosgoth, as long as Kain remains alive.
An ironic condemnation, given this guilty scene. One would think you'd torn down the pillars single-handedly. What are you trying to obliterate as you drag your loathsome body through this chamber? And why, as Nosgoth descends into madness and misery, do you appear to thrive? Things in this world, I am learning, are rarely what they seem. You, apparently, are no exception.
I am the engine of life, the source of Nosgoth's very existence. I am the hub of the wheel, the origin of all life, the devourer of death.
Or maybe you're just hungry. Could it be as simple as that? Wouldn't that be poetic irony? The great adversary of the vampires turns out to be the biggest parasite of them all.
Do not test my patience, Raziel. I made you, and I will unmake you if I become so inclined.
As your agent, I am beyond death.
There are fates worse than death, Raziel.
Oh, I see you now as you truly are. A cancer. A spooling parasite burrowed deep in the heart of this world.
Go now. Play out your pitiful rebellion and take your place among the destroyed, the used, and the damned. But know this. You are mine for eternity. You have always been, and will always be, my soul Reaver.
Seems like this old god is an old jackass. So now in the future, Raziel sees that the Elder God has grown quite a bit. And so he makes the connection that in Raziel's time, this thing has grown so big that it covers almost all the world. That's why in Raziel's time, he can hear the Elder God's voice no matter where he goes. And it seems like as Nosgoth descends into, like, madness, this thing grows and gets stronger. So Raziel basically is like, you might be the biggest parasite of them all, like, thing that hates the vampires for leeching off your wheel of fate. And as you can see here, these are its tentacles. It looks like it reached up and destroyed the pillars itself. So this thing might be the problem, as it were.
Your destiny beckons.